Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. So glad that you're checking in. If you're checking in with us live, I really appreciate you. If you're watching this, we really appreciate you. I'm so happy to bring you Tulani Thomas, one of our esteemed alumni, 94. Tulani Thomas was born and raised in Bronx, New York. She is a 94 alumni of Randolph Campus H.S, where she was an student leader. She was a member of the track team all 4 years and held a position on the executive board of the Student Government Association, both her junior and senior year. After graduating at Randolph Campus High School, Tulani Thomas attended North Carolina Central University on a full academic scholarship. Upon graduating from North Carolina Central University, Tulani worked as a CPA for 3 years at Ernst Young LLP's in the Audit and Advisory Business Services Group, and a year at Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia. Woo! All right. Omnimedia. Tulani returned to graduate school and obtained a dual JD M.B.A. degree in May 2006 from Duke University School of Law and Fuqua School of Business. Tulani worked at Clifford Chance for 4 years in the marketing and advertising group, I believe, right? M&A?
Yeah.
Is that right, Tulani?
Mergers and acquisitions.
Oh, thank you. I figured I was screwing something up. All right. Mergers and acquisitions group before deciding to stay home full-time and raise her son and daughter. Tulani founded a publishing company, Tutu's Green World LLC, whose mission is to influence the next generation to live eco-friendly. Tulani was inspired to start the publishing company because as a mom, she realized how important it was to start early with children to emphasize the importance of preserving resources. She has found ways to incorporate those lessons into her children's daily routines in fun and interesting ways, and hopes her publishing company will inspire other parents to do the same. The company promotes green living through their website, www.tutusgreenworld.com, and a children's book series. The first book is entitled Tutu Goes Green and was released in October 2011, and it's available in hardcover and as an ebook through Amazon.com. We'll throw that link up here in just a moment. Thank you so much for joining me, Tulani. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Cameron. Hi, everybody.
Oh, that's great. So we already have some people that throwing some comments up. Sharon commented before we ever even went live. Naj.
Yes, that's my family. I went to Duke with her.
Cheryl says hi.
Yeah, well, I definitely sent it out to my network. So.
That's beautiful. All right, so talk to us about where you are. Obviously, we got the full introduction, but talk to us a little bit more in detail and context and where you are right now. I know in our conversation and getting prepared for this interview, we talked about, life is going on, and now that, the pandemic is here, maybe a little bit more focus on the publishing and side. So talk to us about what you're doing and the kids.
Yeah.
Cheryl says that's beautiful. And then if you would follow that up with just what you want folks to take away from our interview today.
Okay. Well, right now I'm home like everyone else. And with my two children, I have a 11-year-old and a 10-year-old daughter and son. And right now I'm really focusing on reviving my publishing company. And I'm working on a second book, as well as looking to maybe do some short animations on YouTube. What I will say that my takeaway from our discussion today, it will be about pivoting. We're in unprecedented times, and many of our learning, many of our interactions are virtual. And I really want to take advantage of that with pushing my green mission. So like many other children, my children are spending a lot more hours in front of the screen, and why not have those hours benefit them or benefit all children by pushing the eco-friendly mission of Tutu's Green World.
Awesome. I know that you also mentioned strong work ethic and discipline. Did you want to talk a little about that before?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, that's honestly the story of my life. I am a family of immigrants. My father came over here from Cuba at the age of 12, not speaking Spanish. And my mom was born here, but she was second generation. Her family was from Antigua, very small island in Barbuda. And my father's side is Cuban and Jamaican. And growing up, that's really all I saw was a strong work ethic. He worked 2 jobs and went to school full time. I remember attending his college graduation when I was in high school. So that was extremely impactful on myself as well as my 2 brothers. And it has taken us very far. We grew up in Castle Hill Projects in the Bronx, and education was pushed. Both of my parents, my father, like I said, later on when I was in high school, but they were teachers. So education was highly pushed, and it was definitely my strong work ethic that took me to where I am today. I would say my strong work ethic and my discipline. I'm not exactly the most organized, but I'm extremely disciplined with my time and my schedule. And with my strong work habits and with my discipline, I was able to really, I could go to high school, staying on the honor roll as well as having a full schedule with the track was extremely challenging and demanding. But, strong work will beat talent any day. And
yeah, that's awesome. So we got some more people saying hello. Laverne.
Oh, that's my aunt.
Kasanga.
That's my brother. He also attended A. Randolph. 95.
All right, so he's got to get in touch with me so we can get his schedules too. All right. Yeah, this whole project is about alumni connecting with each other. So hopefully for alumni that are watching, please get in touch with me. Drop a comment and then get in touch with me. I'm not hard to get in touch with. Let's get you scheduled for an interview. So let's get into it. You know the format of these interviews. We talk about how you kind of get into Randolph and the process. So where did you go to junior high? Where were you living?
I lived in Castle Hill, Bronx, up until I went away to college. So we were always in the Bronx. However, I went to school in Harlem from 7th grade to 12th grade. So for junior high, I was at Isaac Newton. It was a magnet school that specialized in math and science. It was on the 2nd floor of what is now Manhattan Center High School. Yeah. So we were there. It was a very small junior high school, but they pushed the math and the sciences. I tended to veer more towards the math. My brothers were more into the sciences. And my zone school in the Bronx was Stevenson High School. And my parents wanted us to have a little bit more opportunity. So we applied for the specialized public schools. And back then, the 3 top ones were Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech. I got into Brooklyn Tech, and that commute was not even going to occur under my mother's watch. So got into A. Philip Randolph, and I really didn't understand at the time how special that opportunity was until I got there. My first year or 2, I believe my first 2 years, Principal Lottie Taylor was there, and she really changed the landscape for A. Philip Randolph. I believe my first year, my second year, we actually were considered the #1 high school in New York City. And
it's definitely not the #1 high school in terms of rankings in the city. And I know
not anymore.
One of the things that I'm trying to do by talking to the alumni is get us to hold that building accountable, to get it back to where it was in the time of Lottie Taylor, because the students deserve it. So I love that you're talking about that. And talking about it in the same breath as these other really great high schools, right? Yeah. So you applied there. You ended up. So what was the feeling like as you were getting into this building?
It was the first time. Imagine coming from a school that was only 1 floor, and contrast it to walking into a high school that was about 4 or 5 floors. Plus, it sat right in the middle of City College campus. So it was a bit daunting at first, but I have to say what made A. Philip Randolph extremely special were the teachers there. I didn't really understand how special the place was until I left. And also now that I have children and I see how difficult it is to find schools where the teachers are definitely well trained, but they also care. And I mean, I just can't even say that enough. Also going to a school where there were so many teachers of color, that also was very impactful. I can go back to my calculus teacher. She had locks like I had. She looked like one of my aunts. And I was more than prepared for college math. I was able to take AP calculus in my junior year. And I know I wasn't alone. There were so many more students that were that received the same benefits of having a caring teaching staff. I was on the engineering track. There was at that time, Macy Medical, engineering, and the business. I did engineering, and I remember I had a drafting teacher, Mr. Rogers. I don't know. I think he might still be there. He was phenomenal. He was very tough. He also came from an immigrant family, so his work ethic was, like no other. But you found many of the students not only rising to meet the expectations, but they were exceeding the expectations. And I remember my senior class, I want to say we had a 98% graduation rate. And again, it speaks to the staff. What else can I say? My experience there. My experience at A. Philip Randall was amazing. I was very active. I held positions in the Student Government Association pretty much immediately when I got there. I wanted to get involved, and they allowed me to do so. My junior year, I was the vice president, and my senior year, I was the class president, the senior class president. And we, you might have heard about our class, Cameron. We actually took a senior trip to the Bahamas. So organize that. I don't think it's been done ever since then, but it was a learning.
I needed to be the chaperone on that trip. What's going on?
Yeah, we had no shortage of those adults that wanted to chaperone. But I mean, that was the fun after a long 4 years of working hard. As I said, I started on the engineering track, and by having great grades, I was selected to be a Michael Milken Scholar, as well as be a Minds Matter Scholar. And through the Minds Matter program, what they did was they partnered me up with mentors that worked in corporate America in the space that I was interested in. And I was able to apply to a summer program at Cornell University. Many of the Ivy Leagues, I didn't know at the time, but many of the Ivy Leagues, many institutions across the nation have summer programs where you are allowed as a high school student to take college courses. And it gives you an experience of staying on campus and taking college level courses, and it prepares you for what's to come. And I did that at Cornell. It was partnered. So I was a a Minds Matter Scholar, but I also had friends that were sent by Boys Harbor. That was a program in East Harlem. And there were about 24 students that went there from the inner city, underserved neighborhood, and we rocked it. I did very well, got A's in both of my courses, but I have to say that it's definitely helped me to make up my mind that engineering was not the path that I wanted to take. And that, I guess that you could say that was the first of many pivots that I would take throughout my career. So when I got back and I was applying to college, going into my senior year, I was looking at accounting, business, because I knew that I was very good at math. I didn't want to be a math major. I wanted something a little bit more broad. And I felt that the School of Business or degree in business would give me that.
Just for continuity, so we're talking about Randolph, and one of the questions that I have, because I think that might be good for current students, because when you talk about Michael Milken Scholars, one of the understandings that I had about it was that it was usually early on, even pre-high school, that you could get involved with Milken Scholars. So if somebody's got good grades, and they're in high school right now, and I just want to shout out Marcus Whitfield and Shelda Williams and Monica Smith, who are all checking in, and giving you a big up here.
Well, Cameron, I definitely know how to market, so I just put it out there.
I appreciate that. The more we can connect the alumni, the better. So, what can a high school student do if they want to have like that sort of experience and get in with the Milken Scholars? Is there an opportunity for them to sort of position themselves to apply to Milken Scholars in high school if they're a high school student? And then just walk us through what it felt like as you were going towards senior year and you were actually in the application process.
Yeah.
Looking for a college, and what did you do to sort of figure it out? Obviously, at that point, you already had these organizations, so I'd love to know how the organizations tied into your college search process and what you were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I would say that if you are a current student, a high school student, and you have good grades are not honestly enough. I was laser focused. 9th grade, I knew that I wanted to go to college. I knew that I wanted to go away to college. So I didn't want to go to a CUNY school or SUNY school. I knew I wanted to go away to college. Back then, there was a show called A Different World where the setting was an historically Black college called Hillman. And I knew I wanted that experience. So I also knew that my parents were unable to afford to send me to college that was out of state. So I knew that I had to build a package. I knew that when my application came across the desks of all of those colleges and universities, they had to see more than just, I had to stand out. They had to see more than grades. So what I would implore high school students that have good grades, definitely work into their package or into their schedule, a sport, a passion, whatever their passion may be. Their passion may be chess, maybe debating. Anything that shows that you're more than just grades, you're more than just an A. And that's important. I mean, because yes, good grades, they speak volumes, but showing the universities and colleges that you have those intrinsic characteristics, you have the drive, you have the grit, you have the tenacity to maintain such good grades while also helping others, while also following your passion. That's what's going to, get you the entrance into the colleges and universities. That's what's going to get you selected to be a Milken Scholar. That's what's going to get you selected to be, a part of different organizations such as Minds Matter. Those organizations, how I was able to become a part of those organizations, I was able to become a part of those organizations via teacher recommendations. And, I want to speak on that too. That relationship, we always talk about networking when we're already professionals. Actually, networking starts in the classroom with your teacher. Your professor has a girth of network. They have a Rolodex. They are involved. They've already done it, so to speak, right? They've done it. They've walked the path. And that you have the benefit of being a part of their network or tapping into their network. And that's exactly what I did. And it's not, it's being yourself. It's being a great student. It's being responsible. It's showing up on time. It's basically showing them what's behind the A. So when these colleges are looking, or when these organizations are looking for great, well-rounded students, it's your teacher recommendations that are really going to get you.
Let me just chime in there because I think there's two big pieces to that puzzle. One, just to sort of piggyback on what you're saying, I talk to my own kids about it all the time, and I've definitely talked to many students at Randolph about the need, even if you don't necessarily love a teacher or get along with a teacher or even think they have your best goal in mind in terms of working with them, that relationship is so important, whether it's your grade that's going to be in the mix or that opportunity that they can offer. And then the other aspect, which, just to be an advocate for Randolph students, is you are very lucky and fortunate to go to school at the time where you had a principal like Lottie Taylor that was making sure that there was teachers in there that cared and were and made sure that they were informed enough to push students to those programs, because without those teachers that care enough and are empowered enough, right? Because there's always two sides to that coin in terms of,
Very true.
I might be impassioned, but if my administration is not behind me, that's challenging, right? So having those aspects really, really big. And before I give it back to you, because I love the notes you're hitting, we'll just shout out Melissa Acevedo, Laverne, Kyla, Sharon Davis. We got a lot
That's my Eagle family. Inroads. Oh, I'll speak on Inroads as well, because I became involved in Inroads. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to connect minority talent with Fortune 500 companies. They were an integral part of my development. However, I became a member in college because I didn't know about it. But if you are, as a high school student, if you're interested in business, I believe you can apply starting your senior year in high school.
What's the name of the program? I'll look up the website and show it off.
Yes, Inroads, INROADS. Okay. And it was great. They teach you, business etiquette, interviewing skills, and just to say, to briefly speak about it, you go. They've changed the process a little bit, but the main mission is pretty much the same, and the main training is the same. And they basically teach you business etiquette, interviewing skills. They pair you up with. You can have 1 to 10 interviews. I had 3 interviews. With different companies. I think I interviewed with Time Warner, Ernst Young, and there was a third one. And from your interviews, you get offers. And those offers are for summer internships. And once you are a summer intern, honestly, the position is yours to lose. I had an internship with Ernst Young for 3 consecutive summers while I was in college. And they trained me. I saw different aspects of the firm. Yeah, that's it. Different aspects of the accounting firm, and you make a selection upon graduation. Hopefully, you receive an offer for full-time employment, and your career goes from there. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that because again, I joined in college, but you can join as a high school student, senior.
Absolutely great. Okay, so senior year at Randolph, you're looking at colleges. How do you?
That was a good time. So if any of my APR 94 class are on, we all remember. We actually just had a virtual reunion, and it ended up being a 4-hour reunion. So that just gives you an example. That speaks to how close we were, how much of a family we were, and we have lifelong connection. My senior year, I knew that I wanted to go to an historically Black college, university. However, I applied to a breadth of universities. So I applied to Emory, upstate Cornell. I actually was accepted because I did the summer program there. I applied to, historically Black colleges, Hampton University, North Carolina Central University, which I ended up attending. And I have to say that A. Philip Randolph's college office, they were amazing. They were amazing. A. Philip Randolph was amazing. We had to take an SAT prep course. It was a class, just like calculus, just like drafting. It was a class. So I felt very prepared taking the SAT exams. And then when I went to the college advisor with my list, they very tactfully let me know that while my mission and my goal is to attend an historically Black college, I do need to diversify my picks. So, as a rambunctious high school senior with my head on, pretty strong-headed, I bucked it a little bit. But at the end, and my negotiation skills came into play because I was like, I basically voiced to them as waived, I have no problem applying. So once the application fee was waived, I applied to probably about 10 schools, and it was solidified once I actually visited North Carolina Central. My parents couldn't afford to send me on a college tour, so we just did a road trip to the schools that I was accepted to and who offered a full scholarship. Yeah.
That's amazing. And
I wouldn't say this.
Were your parents supportive with you going so far away to school?
Yeah, their whole goal was to keep me on the East Coast because I was actually looking a little crazy. Once I started thinking outside of my HBCU.
That's the power of negotiation. I want to go to California. Oh, I have no problem with North Carolina.
Exactly. You know, what really sealed the deal was when they posed to me the question, well, how will you be home for Christmas if we can't afford to fly you from California? That's a good point. I'll apply everywhere where I can drive home, just in case I can't get that airplane ticket. But one thing I did take advantage of also my high school, my senior year, was the City College courses. I took an African American Studies course at City College, and it was eye-opening. I had already done a college level course, you know, over the summer, but this time I was sitting amongst all college students. So it was interesting to see how, you know, you think college is, you know, it helped prepare me for college because I was able to see all different types of students. When you're in high school and you're such a hard worker, you assume that everybody in college is there to handle the curriculum, to take it seriously. And that just wasn't the case. You had a myriad of students there. You had those that it was just like high school, basically, right? You had students that took it very seriously and those that did not. Those students that showed up late every time and those that were there before the teacher got there. So it was a confidence builder for me because I saw that I was well prepared. And it also gave me college credit. So I didn't have to take it when I got to North Carolina Central University, which saved, you know, time and money.
Yeah, I love that. And I always talk about that, you know, CUNY, City College experience, commuter college experience versus a place where the majority of the students are living on campus and pursuing a 4-year degree. You know, there is a different atmosphere. There is a different smell in the air in terms of success and what people want. And that's something that's vital if you are going to make this investment in your education, the time and everything. You want people that are sitting in the next seat next to you that are serious. Talk to us about North Carolina Central University. You know, what were the great aspects of it? Were there things that you disliked? Were you focused automatically on accounting, or did you find accounting later on in the process?
Okay, so North Carolina Central University, I was there under the late Julius Chambers. He was actually an attorney, a civil rights attorney, and he actually opened the first integrated law firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So there was already an air of excellence at North Carolina Central University. When we got there, my family and I, we got there for a tour. We went there for a tour, and we were greeted with open arms. It was a 45-minute scheduled tour. It ended up lasting 2 hours. So that just gives you an idea of the atmosphere. I applied directly to the School of Business. That was something that was only reserved to those students that had a certain GPA coming out of high school, and I was accepted. So once I got to the School of Business, I focused on accounting. That was my focus right away. Because math was my comfort zone. So I thought that was the closest thing to math. I was the eager beaver. I met with the dean, I believe at that time was Dean Thompson. I met with him probably either right before school started or that first week of school. I let him know my goals. He probably was thinking, who is this freshman? But I met with him right away. I told him that I wanted to basically get my CPA. Like, my goal was not just to get a degree in accounting, but I wanted to become a CPA, you know, as a career, and what were the best courses to take to prepare me for that goal. And he assured me that all of the courses at North Carolina Central School of Business would more than prepare me for the CPA exam, and that I was in good hands with those professors. And he was right. I got my CPA. I passed the exam, and I felt more than prepared. When I got to Central, I will say that the School of Business was a little chauvinistic. I have a lot of love for the School of Business, but nothing is perfect. And it was a bit chauvinistic, which I will say prepared me for corporate America, because that's pretty much how corporate America is as well.
Yeah, I think, getting that taste of the real world in the not so real world setting is a big valuable piece for folks. At least you get a little bit of the nurture before you get all of the nature. The experience there at the university, would you say it's the same today, or has it changed over time? You got a lot of folks here with Eagle Pride up on the
Amplified, screen. Eagle Pride amplified camera.
All right. So, maybe speak to that, and then, walk us through the rest of your experience.
Yeah. So North Carolina Central today, I definitely do still feel that that is still, area of excellence. As with, I think, the sign of the times, I don't like to say I'm getting old, but, more mature. This new generation, we don't always understand.
We're all aging like fine wines over here.
That's right. Fine wine. That's right. So, the new generation, we don't always understand, right? Just like our parents didn't understand us. But what I will say is that we still have extreme success stories. With my class, we have, so at the historically Black colleges, there tends to be an honors, there's always an honors program. And there was a separate honors dorm at North Carolina Central University. And that's where I stayed all 4 years. And I have to say, it was amazing. It was my first time really, you're on your own. No one's there to tell you what to do, when to eat, when to do it. And this is where, that discipline, that strong work ethic comes in big time, because there were so many distractions. I always, while I definitely work hard, I do like to have a good time. So I knew what I was there for. I was on an academic scholarship. I knew that if I lost my scholarship, I would be going home. And therefore I was laser focused. There's no shortage. Oftentimes when we refer to historically Black colleges, there's always, oh, that's a party school. Oh, that's a party school. Guess what? College is a party school. I was partying with Duke University students and Chapel Hill students just the same. Right. So in college, just get through your mind. It is a party school.
This is the thing I talk about, with high school students all the time.
Yeah.
You want to go someplace where it's competitive, that there's a very high bar in education, because there is such thing as a party school where, the focus isn't academics, but the party is where, a lot of the education goes down. You want to be with focused people that are about something. I can't help but I'm reading Michelle Obama's book right now. We can talk about some of your favorite books later. I love it. But, just talking about, the people that you're meeting on a college campus and the connections that you make that are lifelong.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're bringing some folks along with you here, right? So shout out to Sharon Davis.
We have a motto at North Carolina Central. We have many mottos, but one is that, our mascot is an eagle. So we're no ordinary barnyard fowl. Many of my colleagues, I can go down the litany of professions. We have makeup artists. We have, I come from an Eagle family. Actually, yeah. So my sister-in-law, her whole family went to North Carolina Central. My brothers both went to North Carolina Central. One of my brothers is a dentist. My other brother, he teaches mindfulness meditation at UNC Chapel Hill. We have a dean over there at UNC Chapel Hill. My sister-in-law, she does a degree in psychology from nursing. We had some of the football players. I remember one I was really good friends with. He owns a fleet of trucks that caters to pest control in the South region. Another one of our friends, it was funny because, while you're at Central, while you're at college, you have different characters, right? Different personalities. but this is where, following your passion and working hard pays off. One of ended up opening up mental health institutions, like 3 or 4 of them in the state of North Carolina. And, some may, some would say he was a little kooky, but he wasn't that crazy, was he?
That's awesome.
But I will say that, yeah, like what I feel like what Central provided for me, and I think it provided for a lot of my classmates, was this strong work ethic and this strong attitude of excellence. I'm looking at some of the comments; they're hilarious.
Yeah, so Melissa's talking about testifying to your Tulani could party with you all night and then go back to a dorm and study. That's pretty good.
She's right. It's true. Because again, I was focused. I worked hard, strong work ethic. I knew, you know what? I knew how many generations I was standing on, how many shoulders I was standing on. And I was not going to let them down. I knew,
So I was there. Time for us to talk about, what you're doing now. So talk to us, because we got a little bit more education to go through. So you're getting towards the end of your Eagle experience here, right? So yeah, junior, senior year, walk us through that, and the real world is approaching. So what's going through your mind? And what's going on?
So at Central, I was always active. Again, the same way at high school. In high school, I was on the Student Government Association. Shout out to Sekou. He was the president, and I was the business manager. And I got a lot of experience with looking at contracts, reviewing contracts, and I never forgot that experience. And that's honestly long term down the road. That's what led me to do law. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I did that, I think, my junior year, but I was always involved with the Student Government Association in some way, shape, or form. I also, because, college is not exactly the most lucrative time of your life, so you have to have little odd end jobs or hustles. I tutored at the Academic Support Center for the athletes. So that was helpful. I ran track maybe my first semester. I was a walk-on. But it was sports in college is a job. So if you're not on a sports scholarship, it's very difficult to balance with other activities in addition to your courseload.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my senior and my junior year, if you do college right, your senior year, you should really be coasting. Because my junior year, so the summer before my senior year, between junior and senior year, that was when I had my internship at Ernst Young in the audit department. And that was kind of like a do or die internship. That's where, again, I had been interning with them 2 summers prior through the Inroads organization. That was the summer where I was actually getting in front of clients. I was actually on the audit teams doing the audit work.
Wow. So
that was when I had to pull in, and rely on my strong work ethic. That was when I had to rely on my discipline. Again, no one's telling you when to show up. Then no one's going to tell you that the meeting that starts at 9, you really should be there at 8:45. No one's going to tell you. They're just going to observe.
Right.
So those were the things that the business etiquette, the underlying expectations, where that training that I received from Inroads and also my North Carolina Central School of Business professors, that's where it really became extremely helpful and critical. And I ultimately was offered a full-time position in the audit department. I accepted. So going into my senior year with a full-time job at one of the top 6 accounting firms in the world, I was good. I was on cloud 9. I was super excited. But I guess in true Tulani fashion, there was one thing that I wanted to check off, and that was studying abroad. I wanted to always do a semester abroad. And I ended up not doing it while I was in school during my senior year, because it was my senior year I was so involved. I was really able to enjoy a lot of things without the pressure of finding a job. And I decided to study in Martinique. I studied French right after I graduated.
So you're managing the FOMO, fear of missing out, right, on senior activities. So you went afterwards. So how was that experience in Martinique?
It was amazing. I was in Martinique, Port-au-Prince. It was so long ago, Port-au-Prince, and I was there for 2 months. So I worked on my French. I was fluent at the time, and we stayed with a French family. And it was a program that was run by Howard University. So there were students from Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, and it was eye-opening. You know, it's always eye-opening. My parents being immigrants, I have traveled to the Caribbean. It's different to travel as a tourist versus someone that's living the day-to-day. And it was probably, I wouldn't say the first, but it was a tangible experience that planted the seed of giving back to my community. And my community being the global African diaspora community. Because I saw and I lived firsthand how those of us that don't have live. And we take so much for granted. We really do. So just being there, learning their culture, learning their language, and hearing the stories, it definitely molded who I am today, and it molded my career path.
That's awesome. So now you've got the senior year, you've graduated, you're doing the summer in Martinique. What was next, and what do you already have things planned out, like in terms of next steps?
Yeah. So my next steps was I was living at home to save money. So I lived at home and I commuted from Long Island to the city. I knew that I wanted to get my CPA exam done in 2 years. They give you 4 years at that time. I think the standards have changed, but at that time you had to have, I believe, 4 years. No, you had to have 2 years of public accounting experience. Ernst Young gave you 4 years to pass the test. I didn't have 4 years to waste. So my goal was to get it done in 2 years. And by that time I would have the experience and I'd be officially a CPA. So I went in, when I got back from Martinique, got set up in my parents' home, and I went right to work with looking for a review course. Now that's something that I have to put that plug in there. You know, it's one thing, you know, you have the training, you go to a solid institution that has you well trained, and therefore you have the knowledge base. But those review courses, while they are steep in cost, they're an investment and they're much needed because they're going to hone in on those topics that will thus make you successful and pass the test. If you don't have the training, you may not understand the topics, but because I came from such a solid program, you know, having that review course just made it a lot, you know, that much more easy. So I did the course over the span. I knew that auditing was quite dry and boring, to be frank. I knew that from the summer. An audit is an audit is an audit. But what makes the difference is your team and your clients. So I right away looked into the retail space. It was a group, retail, manufacturing, merchandising. So my public client was American Standard. So I got that public accounting experience. And I had what I call a fun client with Essence Communications. Back then it was privately owned.
Very
it was owned by Viacom. So those two were my main clients. But I'll say this as well. It's also important when you are entering into your career, you have to speak up, right? You're a staff, at that time they call them staff accountants, your first year, your second year. You know your worth, know what you bring to the table. So I right away went to the staffing director and told her exactly what I just said. I want to have a varied client base, a public accounting, a public client, a private client. I wanted also a small client. And why I say that, why I wanted that is because that would give me the opportunity to have more responsibility early on. So with my very small client, I remember it was a small client that was based, it was somewhere in Asia. But there was, the team constituted a partner, a manager, and a senior/staff. So I pretty much was the senior/staff. So I did everything. And I reported directly to a manager. That helped train me to do those other, where there was like so heavily staffed, where you felt like you were just ticking in time. But on that particular job, I had to manage, that's where the discipline came in. I had to manage the schedule. You had to manage the client's expectation along with your partner expectation.
I love the fact, the part of that story where you're advocating for yourself. So as a young Black woman at that time, like, what empowered you? Was it the North Central, education? What empowered you to sort of advocate for yourself? Did you have a strong mentor? How did that work?
Yes, all the above. I'm glad you said, I skipped that. So I'm entering into Ernst Young, right? So I'm going from a predominantly Black environment to corporate America. That transition was daunting. But I will say, I was more than prepared. And what empowered me to go into that space with confidence was when I looked to the right and left of me, I saw Ivy League, I saw, private liberal arts alum, I saw Ivy League alum, and myself. So I knew that just as they were there, I was there as well. They were picked and I was picked as well. So I was just as trained, and I deserved a seat at the table, so to speak, just as they did, right?
Awesome.
So that right there gave me the confidence that I needed to be in that space and to be proud and be comfortable. Now, the actual advocacy, I would say there were a couple of things. I think now that, over the years, people have spoken more about having a sponsor and having a mentor, right? Back then, I didn't know anything about that. I really didn't. So I had an assigned mentor, and he was great. And he was able to make suggestions. But I will say that it was really, I have to say, it was honestly just coming from the type of family I came from, coming from a North Carolina Central where I saw so much excellence. And, I had the confidence to take his suggestions, take, some of the critiques that he had for me, and just take it and run with it. And that's exactly what I did. You have to know how to approach and how to advocate for yourself without turning those off. You have to.
I think it's hard for almost any age, but especially young Black women, but women in general, because I've had these conversations from everybody from my wife, who's Latina, Mexican woman, my daughter who's 13, to I run a staffing company. So having, every type of women, and sometimes men too, but women in particular, apologizing for things that they don't need to apologize for, feeling like they're stepping on toes or they're going to be judged some sort of way when advocating for themselves. So I think it's a really big deal that you were asking for those things at Ernst Young, saying, hey, this is the type of client I want. These are the type of interactions that I want. So move us from, I know, and maybe I'm missing something because I'm just reading through the LinkedIn profile, but I know you moved from Ernst Young to Martha Stewart Living. Can you talk to us about that transition? And then I think as we're getting into that, you decide to go back to law school. So I'd love to know the transition from Ernst Young to the opportunity with Martha Stewart Living to why you went back to school.
Go back to school 4 years. Yeah. So so my time at Ernst Young, it was, like I said, it was very busy. It was, it was quite developmental. I decided to do a year in the private space, private accounting, because I wanted to see what the experience would be to, so to speak, have a home. When you're a public accounting, when you are an auditor, you're going from client to client. You have your time there. You issue the annual report, and then you're on to the next. I wanted to see how it was to work within an organization. And I ended up at Martha Stewart. That in of itself I could talk to you about for an hour, but
yeah, how did you get the opportunity?
I would say, I mean, headhunters. Once you pass that CPA exam, they find you. Once you have a CPA exam, went to a solid school, a solid university, and I had public accounting experience at Ernst Young, I pretty much could write my ticket anywhere.
And let me tell you this, because I think this is something that you're saying they found you, but you got to be out there to be found. I see so many professionals that hide themselves on social media, don't have the LinkedIn profile,
right?
Aren't really putting themselves out there in the way. I don't know if they're scared, whether it's identity theft or whatever the case may be, but you got to learn how to use these tools because, you're not going to have your story if you're hiding behind a rock. You got to kind of put yourself out there. So I appreciate that you're saying they found you, but I think you had your in some kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have Facebook and LinkedIn back then, but you did have networking opportunities. And I was very active in the National Association for Black Accountants and the AICP, the American Institution for Certified Public Accountants. They have what they call committees. So I was on the media subcommittee, the entertainment and media subcommittee for that. So you're absolutely right. That's essential.
Can't hide in the office. I also wanted to call out, Marcy Jones said this is why HBCUs are so important or so critical. And I think she was talking about the
network.
Well, the network, but I think she was referring to the empowerment that type of education can provide to you versus being in a more of a mainstream environment.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So when I was at Ernst, when I went to Martha Stewart, I was a diversity. I'll just say that there were no other people of color there in a professional capacity. So I was at that point, because I was able to leverage my clients at Ernst Young. I went in covering her publishing sector and her television sector. I was very well received, very well respected. And I was a part of the monthly financial meetings. And in those meetings, you had the accountants, the senior accountants for each sector. You had the CFO, you had the assistant CFO, you had the CFO, and you had the general counsel group. So general counsel and maybe two lawyers or one of the lawyers. And what I noticed in those meetings is that a decision was never made without the CFO and the general counsel agreeing.
Wow.
If one wasn't present, then literally they would wait to get the sign off from the other. And at that time, I had already applied to Duke Business School and deferred my acceptance because I just really wasn't ready at the time. And
what was the process around applying? Why had you at that point said, "Hey, I want to go"?
At Ernst Young, I just knew I wanted more. I knew that, I always knew that I wanted to have a family. And I also knew that I wanted to have a strong career. And when I was looking at, the partners at Ernst Young, they were mostly men and they were always on the road. So I knew that that was not the life that I wanted. I wanted something that was a little bit more, I had more of a balance. So I thought that the M.B.A. would be a tool for me to obtain that type of work-life balance that I wanted to attain.
The unattainable work-life balance, yes, indeed.
Little did I know.
Yeah. So you're at Martha Stewart now. You've applied to law school. I guess
at that point, I had applied to business school. When I was at Martha Stewart, I decided to apply to law school because I saw how intertwined the business and law was.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right, so that makes sense. All right, so walk us through that and getting into law school and.
Yeah. I mean, the law school application honestly might be worse than law school itself. It's extremely grueling. I don't think I had much of a life. I mean, of course, I found a way to make sure that happened. But it was I basically worked, and when I got off from work, I just studied for another like 3 hours.
Because Cassandra says that Tulani is a social media platform, so you found some ways to make things work.
That's my brother. So yeah, I definitely found the way. Work hard, play hard. That's our motto.
Right.
And it paid off. I mean, also, again, I have to speak North Carolina Central. I can only speak from my experience and from my colleagues' experiences. Yeah, that decision to attend North Carolina Central was so important. When I applied to law school, I reached out to Julius Chambers, shared with him my and I was fully supported. I mean, I got into some of the top law programs in the country. Columbia. I remember that's where he wanted me to go. But I ended up going to Duke, and I have to say that it was a great decision.
Why did you choose Duke over Columbia?
Because of the community.
Okay.
And they gave me money. I got a partial scholarship.
And of course, Duke is in North Carolina. I'm not making a mistake.
It is.
So you had your folks, you had your people.
I did. Yeah. Although in law school, I honestly lost some friends in law school because the first year in the joint program. So I mean, let me just make sure I didn't skip anything. So my year at Martha Stewart, that was when I applied to law school. A grueling schedule, completely paid off. And that was when I left home and for good and went down to North Carolina Central. Went down to Duke University. I decided to go to Duke versus Columbia because of the community. And they also gave me a partial scholarship. And it was a joint program. And it reminded, that Southern feel, that Southern hospitality. While I am definitely, I'm a Bronx girl. Through and through. I'm a city girl through and through. Something can definitely be said for that, Southern hospitality. It just permeates in the air. And even though Duke was highly competitive, I found that the staff there were just as invested in the students. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that nurture, but at the same time, I wanted that very strong training.
That's awesome. So talk to us about the experience at law school. So, you were sort of sucked into law school, and it seems like the world might have stopped a little bit. Were you working while you were in law school?
No, I was not. That's where, we could have another conversation about personal finance. While, like I said, I was staying at home, so I was saving a lot of money. I saved a lot of money to where I didn't have to work while I was in law school and business school.
Awesome.
I took out minimal loans, but it was really more so, through grants, scholarship, and financial aid. I didn't have to work. And
right now we have Nia Rock with I think it's I want to say I always mess it up because I get all these bank names in my house, but I'll come back to that. But she does financial literacy stuff with the students, so it'd be great to have you come back and maybe do some financial literacy stuff with the Randolph.
Yeah, absolutely. It's essential.
Yeah.
And I would say too, with the Duke, going back to what I wanted to be one of the takeaways, it was a pivot. It was a complete pivot in my career, right? I had gone to school for accounting. I had 4 years as a CPA, and it was a complete pivot, almost starting from the beginning, going back to school for 4 years with a desire to be an attorney, a business attorney.
That's amazing. So now you're at law school. Was there anything you want to talk to us about the experience at law school? Something that was really great about it? Something that was
I wouldn't say it was a great experience. Maybe some people would say that about their law experience. I wouldn't. It was hard. It was extremely difficult because the law, the law industry is just a very pretentious industry. As an attorney, I don't know if you've been around attorneys. The first question they're going to ask is, "Oh, you're a lawyer. What schools do you go? Did you go to?" You know, it's like it's just such a pretentious industry. But I have to say that was the most interesting material that I learned. Like I totally enjoyed like reading the cases, reading the briefs.
Marcy Joseph's law school was terrible.
So yes, Marcy, right? Like who said this great? Some people, you know, but I would not say it was great.
She follows up with "Don't do it." I imagine there's got to be. I'd love to hear from somebody that had a good experience with law school. Somebody's out there, I'm sure they had.
Yeah, I can connect you with some, but no. Okay.
Asamundia says there's a lot of debate about the value of legal education, especially given the price tag. Would you still advocate for law school, even if it required you to take on a lot more debt?
I would say I would advocate for law school if you were very clear as to what your path was, right? And let me expound on that more. I have friends that went to law school with the clear mission that they wanted to do public interest law, right? So while you might, at first glance, you might think, well, why would you pay all that money if you know you're not going to make that much money in the long run? Well, because that was their mission and they've been doing public interest law for 10 plus years, their loans are forgiven. I have other friends that went into law school whose mission was to work on Wall Street. They don't have any school debt, right now, because they've had 10 plus years doing what they intended to do in the law profession.
Right. Being goal focused and having having something to show for it.
Exactly.
Marcy Jones says, I would do it over again, but not with a ton of debt.
Yeah, exactly. I ironically went to law school with the mission of becoming a sports attorney.
Okay.
And so this is a small snippet. I networked with some of my colleagues in the business space before going to law school and spoke to a couple of attorneys at the NFL. And that's how I was able to land my internship my first summer after like my 1L summer, your first year law school summer, the 1L summer, I had an internship at the NFL.
So you did have some interesting experiences in between. Okay.
Yeah. So that honestly, at that moment, just to be completely honest, I was very grateful that I was going to the business school because I realized that incurring all this debt for law school and wanting to pursue a career in sports law was not exactly the best decision. I ended up after that experience at the NFL, I knew I did not want to be a sports attorney.
Okay.
I wanted to do
which is probably just as important as understanding what you want to do, right? Knowing what you don't want to do is great.
Absolutely. And my business school experience, now that I will say was amazing. Amazing. So I have lifelong friends.
So you were at Duke. So did you transition from Duke to, or was this all part of the same experience?
Yeah, so I was originally admitted into both the JD M.B.A. program.
Gotcha.
So there are only about 6 students that they accept into the program every year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're working through this. You've had some internships. So was there any other internships that you wanted to talk about before we get to the end of the business?
I think, the traditional internship was at the law firm. So my first year, I did a non-traditional internship at the NFL, where I got real experience, which was invaluable because that's when I knew I didn't want to do it. And my other internships, I could definitely speak to any high school student that wants to talk about, law school and the internships, because what I observed, I was a little bit older because I had worked 4 years before going back to law school, and I had client engagement in my previous career as a CPA. A lot of the law students were just not prepared. Now they had the training, but they were not prepared as to how to conduct themselves in front of clients, how to conduct themselves in the office. And it's something, again, no one's going to tell you. They're just going to they're going to talk about it behind your back.
Yeah, understand the culture.
Or your review.
Understand the culture as you move into organizations. I mean, it's one of those things that I think once you're in the job market and you've had the experience, like knowing that you're not going to accept the job before you understand the culture of the environment that you're walking into, it sort of becomes, but for somebody that's new into the job market, it's difficult to understand. You know, I remember being at interview in a medical education company, and I tend to like to dress well, right? And I was there and I was in a 3-piece suit, and the CEO comes in, he's overdressed. Like I was automatically dismissed because I was overdressed for the interview. Until you sort of been through these experiences, heard the conversations in the back, office kind of thing, you just don't know. You know, you can.
So that's something, to speak on that. Something I always did, I don't know where, I'm trying to think, I think maybe Inroads prepped me for this. I always try to get intel. And when I say intel, like this is where the network is so valuable. I'm talking about someone knows a friend, or you may have a relative that knows someone that works at the organization. And I don't care if they work in the mailroom, if they work in the mailroom, great. Then they can also connect me with someone that may be in that department. But I always try to speak to somebody before I go in for an interview or before I go into the client, just to get background. When I was at Ernst Young, I would try to speak to the manager who might have rolled off onto another client, just to get an idea of what's their culture, what's the culture like, what are their expectations. And I too, Cameron, had a similar experience showing up to an interview way overdressed. And I didn't get it. It was not a good thing. But you never forget it. You never forget it. And you take it with you.
Absolutely. Lessons learned, right? Yeah. So talk to us. What was the next step after?
So JD M.B.A, 4 years at Duke, living my best life at the business school. I knew my husband. I had met him in Inroads, and we both went to Duke University. Or he was in the business school. I was in the joint. So that's like when we started dating. So I was dating my best friend. So Duke has a special place, in my heart. He graduated. So he was in the city at City Group. I was down there grinding and finishing up the last 2 years. And I was interviewing. So this is where, Tulani Thomas is going to be completely open and honest. Now, I came from North Carolina Central, where I was a straight A student for the most part. Law school has a way of humbling you, okay? So everybody at law school is smart. My grades were subpar, medium, okay. They were good. They were not great. I had to work so hard to secure an offer at one of the top law firms, honestly, globally. It was Clifford Chance is the name of the firm. They have office. They're more like all of the international students. That was their dream job because they have a very strong hold in the international markets. They have an office in New York. They have an office in DC, in the United States. And that was ultimately where I was able to secure a position. But I have to be completely honest, because I was not at the top of my class. I went on several interviews. And I had to hustle. I had to really sell myself in those interviews. That's where I had to show them what was behind the grades, experience, the hard work ethic, and it paid off. It definitely paid off. I think a lot of times I did see with some of my classmates, they thought that, they got into a great school like Duke, they didn't have to work hard. And not everybody not everybody is gainfully employed after graduating from Duke Law School. So you still, once you get into those top institutions, you still have to work your tail off.
A gentleman says, preach, professional school is very humbling.
That's my brother, the dentist. Yeah. That's where that hard work ethic, that discipline comes in to play. So after being at Duke for 4 years, I ended up, walking into the law firm, and I got to tell you, that was a beast. The law firm, they take no prisoners. You have to go in with a solid foundation. What helped me with that foundation was all of the years, my whole journey. The summer before going into the law firm, I already knew that the class was of 40. And out of that class of 40, I was going to be in the mergers and acquisitions group. I was going to be the only Black female in the group. So I already knew that failure was not an option. I was studying for the bar before I got there. Failure was not an option. So I was almost robotic. My schedule, I could tell you what I was doing at 3:05 every day. It was just that strict because, I was taking the New York bar. The passage rate was very low at like 30%.
Oh, wow.
I knew that I could not walk into this law firm being one of few and not have passed the bar. It just was not going to happen. It was not going to happen. So that summer, I stayed in Durham, North Carolina. Great. The summer before, I went to the law firm, and it served me well the first time around. And that it helps people view you in a different light. I know that I might not have been taken as seriously if I was the girl that didn't pass the bar the first time. Mm. As a minority in these institutions, we don't have the same luxuries as our white counterparts. It is what it is. So while, some of my, especially the white male counterparts, they're given a lot more leeway. He didn't pass the bar because he was planning his wedding. So was I. He didn't pass the bar because he had to do X, Y, and Z. There's just a lot more leeway that was given. And I knew that I would not be given that leeway. So I stepped up and I achieved that goal. And
I think there's a lot of folks that, are very familiar with that. You have to be twice as good as them to get half, which is something that's still commonplace in the industry. Do you see that changing at all?
No, I don't. I don't. I think the change that I do see is that it's being discussed a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're having more leadership at the C level. So therefore, there's discussion, and therefore there are active steps to try to level. But the unique thing about a law firm, I'll say, is that it's a private organization. There are no shareholders in a law firm. So with publicly traded companies, I will say that we have seen some change there, right? They have more female CEOs, more African American CEOs now than ever. At the law firm, it's still very difficult to change because there are no shareholders to be accountable to.
How because we are talking to younger folks and talking to community in general here. If somebody wants to go out and they want to change that, what would you recommend they should? And this sort of speaks to my heart because so often I'll talk to a high school student. They want to be a nurse. Now, as a high school student, and I've interviewed alumni already that they are nurses and they're doing exceptional work. Jasmine Matos just comes to mind. She graduated from Johns Hopkins, one of the best institutions in the United States. Absolutely honorable thing. But I also feel like where are our hospital directors, the folks that have the ambition to run the institutions that then can provide more seats at the table. And she's talking about her mission. She wants to see more folks of color in those positions. So, for me, I'm like always pushing like, yes, let's get that hospital started so that we can make sure that is put to fruition.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And even if, your path isn't to become partner of a law firm, right? Or your path isn't to become a CEO, while you're there, your mentorship and your time is invaluable. While I was there was an African-American male, Michael Salmon. He was he was double Ivy. He went to Harvard and he went to Yale. And he really, really helped with my career at Clifford Chance, because, you know, he was senior. He was well respected. He had been there, and he could speak to my experience, not as a woman, but as a person of color. And while, you know, that's a change. That's how we can make a change as an individual, right? So like, while you're going up the ranks, while you are there building your career, you can still mentor, you can still help. And even with your colleagues, you know, working together, you know, being that person that they can come to and ask that stupid question to, that does change the landscape. So yeah, I would say that to young people, and not to be intimidated, because, I mean, underneath it all, we're all the same. And if you have the question, I guarantee you 5 other people have the same exact question.
Yeah.
You're right. So that intimidation factor, like, to really just kind of shed that off, and just, I come from a home where, like I said, it's, I always go back to that immigrant family. And, when you look at our history as people of color, we come from a very strong lineage. And I always having those doubts, because I think it would be disingenuous to say that I don't ever have doubts. But I think about all of the struggle and how far our people have come. And I say, let that help fuel you as well, because nothing stays the same. In the early 1900s, they never thought that slavery would end. Look where we are, right? So, it takes everybody doing their individual part.
And I love that perspective, because there's folks that are going to complain about how bad things are, but man, it's never been as good as it is right now. Take the opportunity, move forward. We can cry a river all day, but you gotta keep it moving forward. And I absolutely, call the problems out, speak on it.
Right.
Don't be quiet. Don't be a part of the problem and not say something. But at the same time, don't sit here and cry me a river, right? What's the solution? What's the way forward? How do we change this? How do we actually make this work? So, and I just wanted to give some attention to Naj, and then I want to talk to how we get to the end of the time with Clifford Chance and how we moved into what you're doing now. Naj says, unfortunately, healthcare, those leaders look out for their own. I don't think that's uncommon. You have to prep and prepare and find the right people to connect with in that arena. Start early. I love that message, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's certainly what I was talking to. Like, what are your goals? Because I'm talking to my 9-year-old son, and I love having these conversations, because he's like, oh, I want to be president. I want to become a lawyer so that I can be the mayor and then be the president. Like, that's the right way to think about it, because he's like, it's thinking through the solution. And he can very much be like, I want to just be rich and I want to be able to buy that. I'm like, well, how do you get there? Like, what are the steps? Yeah, exactly.
And I will say too, with that, I also, when I got to Clifford Chance, I did the same thing I did when I was at Ernst Young. I did the same thing I did when I was at Central. I actively advocated and I actively sought out mentorship. And my mentor was an older Jewish man. And he was a strong mentor. He was a strong advocate for me. So I say that because of the situation, of the landscape that we're in. You're not going to always be able to find mentors that look like you. But that does not mean that they don't have a vested interest in your success. My mentor at the NFL was a Jewish woman, and I was able to, be on a player's grievance and get, a breadth of experience with her. And my mentor like I said, at Clifford Chance, he was the head of the M&A department. And that was a game changer for my career at Clifford Chance. I was given opportunities that I would not have been given but for having him as a mentor. but for having him also as a sponsor, because he definitely vouched for my work ethic and my skill set. So I will say that also, while we're looking for the landscape to change, we cannot only rely on mentors and sponsors and guidance from people that look like us.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's something that's a maturity thing, because it's hard and difficult to understand that.
Yeah.
And it's also a benefit and a privilege when you do have the guidance from folks that do look like you to sort of help you with that, because it can be very challenging if you're looking out into a sea of faces that don't match your own, and you're trying to fit in and trying to understand your place in the world and be empowered. So it can be challenging both ways, but certainly helps when you have a little bit of both, because we all need the role models and the people to sort of help us understand the world.
Absolutely. So after Clifford Chance, I was there for 4 years. While I was there, I had my son, and then I had my daughter. Now, I would say I was doing mergers and acquisitions. I was working 7 days a week, about 12 hours a day, give or take. Not really conducive to the type of lifestyle.
Like 12-hour days, nothing, no problem, right?
It was not the best time, I will say. And that was when a decision was made as a household for me not to return after I had my daughter.
What was your husband doing, by the way? And my condolences. I know he passed. What was he doing at the time?
Yeah, at the time he worked at Citigroup. He was the global head of the North America Leveraged Loan Desk.
Okay.
So
you got the ability to make that decision.
Yeah, he worked long hours as well.
Right.
But he was more Monday through Friday, and I was kind of like every day. No schedule. When that BlackBerry, when it goes off, it's like attached to you. So, I mean, it was a decision. It wasn't very difficult for us to make, because we were kind of cut from the same cloth. He came from a 2-parent home. I came from a 2-parent home. We knew what type of family environment we wanted for our children. So, we made that decision that I would stay home. He was also very much an alpha male, so him staying home just was not going to happen. It wasn't happening. So I did that. And during that first year, that's when I went full-fledged. I had the idea about the children's book. So this is a pivot. This is another pivot. I had the idea when I was in the law firm, going through the motions, I'll say, because there was no real passion in what I was doing. I had the idea to start a publishing company, do a children's book. And I had that idea really after I had my son in 2008. Because I wanted him to have books where the characters looked like him, but I didn't want the books to be so heavy in topic. Like, I don't necessarily want to read a book to my son about the civil rights movement.
Right.
So
and I've definitely had we've read books in the house. What is it? I'm trying to remember the title, but why does my friend call me black? And
right.
There's definitely which are important, but there's heavy
in due time.
Yeah,
in due time, right? Not an 8-month-old. So I was just thinking, so that's what kind of sparked the idea of a children's book. And then once I was trying to figure out what topic, I thought, why not attack a global issue? So this goes back to the whole community, social impact. So I said, some of my friends call me Granola Fabulous Mother, because I'm very natural. Don't forget the fabulous. So, very natural, and I knew that there were other mothers out there like me. And I came up with the whole gold green concept because I felt that it was a global issue that all mothers, all parents could relate to, and there'd be no shortage of topics to approach to cover. So the actual character Tutu is named after my grandmother's nickname. It's kind of like a secret nickname she had for me. And the actual picture was drawn from a picture of my son's baby picture. So that's how that was kind of birthed. And once I left the law firm, I decided to do that full time. My mother-in-law was living with me, so I really had a lot of hands. It was a lot of help. And I went for it full speed ahead. I found the illustrator. I wrote the book, found the publishing, a printing house, storage, fulfillment, all. I learned a lot about the publishing industry. And this is where that law degree comes in handy. I did not have to hire a lawyer. I was able to form my LLC myself.
Right.
You know, that training came in handy. Yeah. And then in the marketing, learning how to market, you have to market your book even before it's released. And learning the differences between the self-publishing space versus, you know, having an agent and going with a big publishing house. I decided to self-publish because I wanted to control the image of the character. And I had the time and the resources, quite frankly. You know, doing a children's book is not exactly, you don't go into the children's book space for, you know, to get rich for the money. Right. It definitely has to be a passion. You know, if that's something that comes along, you know, down the line, then wonderful. But that, I would definitely say it was definitely a labor of love. I feel like it's like my third child. So I did that. I was marketing the book and not working. I decided to join a board. This was where my, you know, my kind of like my community, my give back. So I joined a board. It was a non-sectarian arm of my church, and it was called Bethany Cares. I was in charge of the golf classic. That, you know, it's one of my interests, and it was a great vehicle to bring in money. And I was also able to utilize some of my talents. So I was able to. They went from bringing in maybe, I want to say They went from breaking even to netting about 100,000. From the
That's
golf.
amazing.
So I did that in like over the course of 3 years. And all the while I have the publishing company going, and then tragedy hit with my family. So everything, another pivot, you know, all of that came to a halt, and I really had to focus on family, friend support, and battle that monster called cancer. So we ultimately lost the battle in December of 2018. And now, you know, over the last year and a half or so, we've been kind of picking up the pieces, me and my children, and I've returned to Tutu's Green World.
You know, it's such a wild story. So many people, you know, have this going through their lives in a daily. I imagine there's some books that you can write on this, and you're in a good position to do that. For those that are kind of suffering, because, you know, you seem to be dealing with it well, you've come out the other side of it. Do you have any advice for folks that, you know, are dealing with that stuff? And I mean, this is a hard time for a lot of people, because a lot of folks are losing loved ones for a lot of different reasons, you know, but especially for COVID-19. You know, I just we had an interview with one of our students that was dealing with loss while he was in high school, and talking about how that affected the trajectory, right? You know, not having the passion and the motivation to want to move forward. So what's your advice to folks that are dealing with challenges like that?
Yeah. I'm a very spiritual person, and I try not to concentrate on the why, because we don't know why. All we know is that it is. And I believe that God has not brought me this far to leave me now. You know, I have a strong faith, and, you know, I truly believe that, you know, for whatever reason, you know, these were the cards that I was dealt, and I am empowered to continue. While I mean, it's devastating, and some days, you know, are better than others. It can always be worse. It can always be worse. So I kind of try to remind myself of that. I try to keep an attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
And I try to instill that in my children because they're very young. And, you know, you mentioned the high school student. I'm sure, you know, it's so hard for him to probably even, or her to even fathom, you know, what is next, what tomorrow will bring. But just put one foot in front of the other, you know? And again, I do look back at our ancestors. I look back at our lineage, and I'm like, you know, we couldn't even imagine some of the things that they had to deal with, and yet still here we stand.
Yes.
Right. So if you have that faith, and you kind of like look back for strength, also, and this might sound kind of, you know, kooky or whatever, but self-care is so important. You know, I have to say, you know, I have two brothers, the one that's right under me. We're 16 months apart. We're very different, but very similar as well. And I say that because he has such a calm spirit, a calm demeanor. And something that he's taught me and that I'm constantly sharing with my children is breathing. You know, there's so much calm, there's so much rejuvenation and renewal that can come out of just stopping and breathing. And whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, however it works for you. But if you could just stop and have a breath moment, it's life changing. It really is. It has gotten me through. And I'm not going to get choked up, Cameron, but yeah, it really has.
No, you know, the mental health aspect of this, the challenge that so many people are facing right now, to be able to stop, meditate, be able to handle whatever adversity that's coming their way. And I know there's probably some people like, you know, that are like, you don't really got that much going on, but you know, mental health, you know, it affects people differently. You know, your problem may be small, might be big, but it might feel like the whole world is crushing you. Right. It's not.
It's relative. Mm-hmm.
You gotta respect that. You know, people handle things in different ways. And much respect to you for dealing with the challenges that you are, and knowing that you have something still to contribute, obviously, in lots of different ways. I think, you know, in us doing this interview, book after book, I heard in my head of experiences that you have to share. So I'm really looking forward to what's in store.
Yeah.
From the Tutu's Green World, a line of books to come. So how are ways that folks can get in touch with you and sort of work with you in the future? And is there anything that you're looking for in terms of services right now from the alumni community, from your Eagle community? How can people help and support you?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, on my website, www.tutusgreenworld.com, there's a contact page, and on there I have an email address, which is info@tutusgreenworld.com. I'm on social media, Facebook as well as Twitter. And so I'm very accessible. And what I would say, you know, what I'm looking for now, you know, a lot of young folk or the younger generation, they're really into blogging. And that's something, or, you know, like basically getting the message out there. That's something that I would love assistance with. And I would also like to offer my assistance to any young person that is looking to do a myriad of things, whether it be law, whether we want to talk about college, corporate America, navigating that, you know, the corporate arena. I'm definitely available to speak. If you want me to address, you know, a group of young students, I can do that. But, you know, I think it's really important what you're doing here, Cameron, because oftentimes, you know, when I was younger, at least, I didn't know what I necessarily wanted to do. I know, and I sit here now and I have, you know, all these paths that I've taken. But when I was in high school, I really didn't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But hearing other people's experiences and having access to them I mean, that's just such a game changer. So, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, hopefully, we've had a ton of people paying attention today, which I'm really just appreciative because it helps get the message out. We want alumni to connect with each other, and it's a big deal. Before we sort of sign off and I let you say goodbye to folks, Azamundia James asked a question. She said, well, let me preface this. A mentor is anybody who has already done something you've done. Different people can serve as mentors for different aspects of your career development and success. Not everybody can mentor you about being a Black woman in the profession, but there are other things that can guide you through. And then she asked, any suggestions, Tulani, on the obligations of mentee? How do you make sure you're a good person to mentor?
Oh, the mentee. Oh, yes. That's a very good. You have to, as a mentee, you definitely have to be receptive and accessible. The job of a mentor is not to chase down the mentee, is not to constantly reach out, constantly offer without the mentee honestly reciprocating, right? So as a mentee, I felt that it was a give and take relationship. I did not feel that I was just there to absorb, take from my mentor. I also felt that it was my obligation as that mentor's mentee to assist wherever I could, whether that meant they needed an extra pair of hands on a client engagement, whether that meant that they needed a proofread, like a last read on a document before it went out. However way I could be of assistance to my mentor, I made sure that I verbalized that and I was always accessible. Many times a mentor-mentee relationship fails not because the mentee is not present for that relationship.
No, I think that's absolutely perfect because I mean, especially when you're getting something from that experience, you have to understand, like, you need to be of value and show up and be appreciative. I mean, going back to the attitude of gratitude, right? Are you grateful for the time that I'm giving you? Because my time is extremely valuable. I put whatever amount of years into making my time valuable. I'm willing to give it to you for free. Do you value it?
Right, exactly. And, and I want to say to that communication, right? Communicating too as a mentee, what exactly you think you need or what you're looking for, right? I've had mentors that have given me advice, and while it's great advice and I utilize it, there are other areas that I also would like help in. But if you don't open your mouth, if you don't communicate that, then it may not be done.
That's awesome. Azamundia says, you are inspiring and brilliant, Tulani, in matters both personal and professional.
Thank you, Azamundia. That's my sister. I mean, I'm married into the family, but she's my sister.
So listen, we have sped through about an hour and 40 minutes of interview.
Oh my goodness.
You
talk so much. You talk so much.
I really appreciate you coming on this. I really appreciate you giving up your time. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this. I want to bring people back to what you wanted people to take away from this. So if you can kind of hit through your points, strong work ethic, the discipline, the ability to pivot, and then I will let you take us out of this and say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. Well, first thing, thank you for everyone for tuning in. Definitely would like to leave the parting message to those students that are looking to embark in their career, those alum that are already, into their career, definitely, keep your eyes on the prize, continue to work hard. Your strong work ethic will produce results. Being very disciplined with your time, knowing when to say no, knowing when to say yes, is essential. And being flexible, being able to pivot. We are in unprecedented times with this pandemic, and many of us are having to be flexible because of, you know, responsibilities and commitments. But just knowing that you can do it. You can be pivotal. You can pivot. You can be flexible. Again, you come from strong stock, as my grandmother used to say. You know, rely on that. Rely on your faith. Rely on your talents, and it will take you far with a strong work ethic and discipline. I thank you for listening to my story. If I could be of any assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out.
That's awesome. So I just want to remind everybody, buy Tulani's book.
Yes.
Your kids, buy 3 or 4, gift them to the community.
Thank
you. Go to the link in the comments on Amazon. It's available for purchase immediately. Thank you again, Tulani. Go ahead and say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
So hang on.
Okay.